In early July, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban made two high-profile visits. On July 2nd, he visited Kyiv for the first time in a long time, where he held talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and immediately, without coordinating his visit, he went to Moscow to meet with Putin. Viktor Orban called this trip a so-called peace mission.
Hungary will slowly become the only European country that can talk to everyone.
The reaction of Brussels and EU leaders was immediate. EU diplomatic chief Josep Borrell emphasized that Viktor Orban's visit to Moscow referred exclusively to the bilateral relations between Hungary and Russia. For its part, the European Commission said that the Hungarian Prime Minister's visit to Russia violated the West's unity regarding the policy on Ukraine. The head of the European Council, Michel, said that Hungary, as the EU chairman, had no mandate to engage with Moscow.
The European Council is clear. Russia is the aggressor, Ukraine is the victim. No discussions about Ukraine can take place without Ukraine. Michel, president of the European Council, on social network X.
As the Latvian Prime Minister emphasized that at the time when Russia is waging war in Ukraine and killing civilians, a meeting with Putin is absolutely unacceptable. According to her, it undermines efforts to achieve Ukraine's victory and just peace. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz also criticized Viktor Orban. Answering the question of German journalist, did Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban inform about his visit to Moscow in advance, Scholz responded with no.
No, but since he is not the one who represents the EU Council, I assume that he thought he didn't need to.
Earlier, Viktor Orban repeatedly spread pro-Russian narratives. For example, in March, he accused European countries of waging their own war against Russia by supporting Ukraine and imposing sanctions against Moscow, and he repeatedly criticized the EU for helping Ukraine. For example, Brussels obstructed almost half of EU's decisions on Ukraine, in particular, blocked the allocation of 50 billion euros to Kyiv. According to European diplomats, EU leaders are ready to deprive Hungary of the right to participate in joint decision-making in accordance with Article 7 on the Treaty of European Union if the country does not follow the EU values.
I think that there will even be a discussion about depriving Hungary of the presidency of the European Union again. I can tell you right away that this process is complicated. Hungary was probably still left with the possibility of chairing the EU Council for two reasons. Because it is quite difficult to deprive a state of such an opportunity if it's time to take the presidency in turn. And besides, Orban showed a favorable position for Ukraine when he stopped blocking the allocation of aid during several votes.
According to analysts at the Institute for the Study of War, the Hungarian Prime Minister is seeking to shift the West's attention to possible peace talks with Russia to undermine support for Ukraine.
Orban's and others' calls for negotiations and Ukraine's peace formula are distinct efforts with different aims, and Russian President Vladimir Putin has demonstrated that he is not interested in any negotiated agreements short of Ukraine's capitulation, from a report by the American Institute for the Study of War.
In his article in Newsweek, Viktor Orban accused NATO of choosing war over peace and said that alliance was created to maintain this peace. Orban's article appeared after his visit to Moscow. In turn, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that at the summit in Washington they expect Orban to tell NATO what he agreed with Russians in Moscow. Reported by Anastasia Tarnavska, Christina Dombrovska, UATV News.